Climate change is a pervasive and hotly debated topic in today's current world. It has significant and far-reaching effects on almost all aspects of life, but the response to it has historically been tepid. Worldwide, roughly 97% of climate scientists agree that the Earth is warming and that it is due to human intervention. In addition, 99% of peer-reviewed studies support this claim. Anthropogenic climate change is largely driven by an increase in greenhouse gas emissions, the major ones being carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, hydrofluorocarbons, and a few others. Once they're emitted and suspended in our atmosphere, these gases work to trap energy as it tries to transition back into space. Over time, this trapped energy increases our global temperature. Whether or not you agree with the idea that this shift in global climate is anthropogenic, it is true that instances of significant climate-related events have increased fivefold over the last 50 years. I believe, and so do many others, that this increase demands a worldwide response to what is a worldwide problem. To that end, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change was created in 1988, which provides reports and recommendations related to global warming and our response to it. There have been a few attempts at global climate action throughout the years via summits, with the most recent being the Paris Agreement. There are many factors that contribute to global warming, but for the purposes of this presentation, we'll be focusing mainly on albedo, after which we will discuss the Paris Climate Agreement and what it means for our future. Albedo is the term given to the amount of energy reflected off a given surface. Different surfaces will reflect differing levels of energy. Put simply, a light surface reflects a great deal of energy, while a dark surface reflects only a little. This energy takes the form of heat, and when the level of planetary albedo is low, more heat is trapped within our atmosphere, as opposed to being reflected into space. Planetary albedo refers to the average reflectiveness of all of the planet's surfaces. For Earth, that value is roughly 0.3 on a scale of 0 to 1. There are many factors that contribute to this number, such as cloud cover, seasonal variation, but the most significant variable that has a mutable effect is the amount of polar ice and snow. These levels are affected by what is referred to as the ice-albedo feedback loop. Ice and snow have very high albedo levels, whereas open water and the ground underneath the ice have very low albedo levels. As the temperature rises, more and more ice melts, revealing the surfaces underneath. These surfaces absorb more energy, which causes further warming and results in a feedback loop that threatens to cause an increasingly rapid loss of polar ice and snow. I would consider this a canary in the coal mine of global warming because polar ice is something we can easily visualize and measure, and when it reaches a point where we can no longer reverse this loss due to that feedback loop, it's likely too late to limit the effects of climate change. We've already seen some of these changes in the form of increased climate disasters and increased weather extremes, and if we let these changes continue, it's likely that we will see increased food scarcity due to droughts and poor crop conditions, as well as a sweeping loss of biodiversity because of habitat loss and an inability of organisms to adapt to rapidly changing environments. The Paris Climate Agreement was created with the goal of limiting this effect. In 2015, 196 parties came together in France to create the Paris Climate Agreement, an assertion to adopt and create policies intended to keep the effects of climate change to a minimum. The Paris Climate Agreement's main goal is to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, or at least below 2 degrees Celsius. It intends to do this by providing a legally binding framework by which the adopting parties will be able to decrease their greenhouse gas emissions and, in turn, their effect on the climate at large. These pledges are based on equitable measures, taking into account a country's size and the resources available to commit to climate-related action. Every 5 years, the goals that the parties must reach become increasingly ambitious, with the understanding that as more time passes, climate change will become more severe and difficult to combat. So far, one such period has come and gone, and while there have been more climate-related policies put forward, nearly all parties are failing to reach their stated goals. There are many global and more local causes of this failure, including shifting political landscape, fears over jobs, and financial insecurity, as well as a war involving one of the largest energy-producing countries in the world. In addition to these setbacks, the Paris Agreement doesn't provide any meaningful enforcement over failure to reach these targets, with the only stated consequence being that the failing party must meet with a committee of neutral climate researchers. Having said all this, there has been progress. The Paris Agreement reaffirmed climate change as a global threat and put it at the forefront of the public consciousness. Countries are pushing more and more climate-related policies, including transitioning away from fossil fuels, transitioning away from the sale of gas-powered vehicles, and pledging to take more sustainable approaches to resource gathering projects, such as mining and forestry. While the efficacy of the Paris Agreement is certainly open for debate, the goals it sets out and the spotlight it puts on our current climate problems, in my opinion, make it an important piece of legislation. Hopefully, it ends up being more than a symbolic one. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you.